I had a dream with a scene that was like there were children's Bibles everywhere. And I also saw a church that was full of people, boys and girls and couples. And it was comforting to the pastor because the church was full to the brim and the full church was finally completed. And I saw upstairs in the rafters or something in the wood and in the top that looked like people, but they were flying around, and I didn't know if they were making final preparations or exactly what they were doing, but they were up there. They were finishing it up, and there were people that had always wanted to visit this church that were so glad that they were finally within the doors of the church. And everyone was just so full of the Spirit and happy and joyful and enthusiastic. It was just a beautiful, beautiful sight to see everyone gathered. And I was aware in my dream that there had been an elevator, like an elevator up to this place, and that it was my true home, like my hometown. It felt like my territory, like the kingdom where I was supposed to be, where I was made to be. And I saw a pool, like it was a pool on top of a residence, and it just reminded me of the river of life flowing from the throne of God, as we read in Revelation 22:1. And I knew it was a place that was fair. It was like the field was fair, everything was fair. And it was hard for people to understand that because there were people there that maybe had hurt them or done something wrong to them. And I just kind of got a picture or something in my dream that kind of showed how things could be fair even though there are people that hurt you there. So I think sometimes people get confused on how people get to heaven because they don't understand how people maybe that hurt them could be there as well. But Jesus' grace and forgiveness is for everyone. And so this was just maybe one idea in my dream of how it would be fair. I saw people giving gifts to each other and getting gifts for each other. Of course, they wouldn't be like our method of payment. We wouldn't be actually buying and selling monetarily, but like there were gifts like plants that, you would normally give someone a plant or a bouquet of flowers for a special, event or something even now. But people were giving each other plants and things kind of like almost to pay each other back for wrongs they'd done on the earth. But it was, everyone enjoys giving and receiving gifts. So it was kind of neat to think of it that way. And just one interesting example was there was a girl that apparently had tried out for cheerleading at one point in her life, and she was so talented. Her moves were just on point and very talented, but it was on the edge whether she was going to succeed or not. I don't know if she actually made it or didn't in real life, I guess you would say, but in this dream, she was paid back. She succeeded. I don't know if she was judged unfairly for her size or her race or whatever it might have been, but this place in my dream was a place that was fair, and everyone received back for maybe the injustices they went through on earth and received gifts. And of course, the gifts weren't anything that could be harmful. Like I said, maybe plants, and it was made very clear that there would be no weapons. And this verse from Isaiah explains the peace that even the nations will no longer have swords. Maybe they'll change them into plowshares, or they won't have spears anymore. In other words, there'll be no more wars or battles or fights. People will only have useful items. So those were some of the gifts, and it was just clear they weren't guns, but maybe other tools, maybe to go with the gardening and the plants. So that was just kind of a beautiful view of not only the beauty there, but also the fairness and the justice and the giving and just the fullness of the church and the fellowship. And who will be in heaven? It'll be Christians, and Christ knows those who are his. I was reading in my dream a book, and also I was reading a pamphlet. And the pamphlet looked like a Christian one, and then I looked a little bit closer, and I saw a warning label that said Mormon on it. And so it made me think of this passage in 1 Timothy 3, 6-7. For people that are overseers in the church, they must not be recent converts, or they may become conceited and fall under the same judgment as the devil. They must also have a good reputation with outsiders so that they will not fall into disgrace and into the devil's trap. And in my dream, it was clear that someone had Leviticus very well memorized. And just in making that comparison, maybe a new convert, let's say they start reading Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, but maybe they haven't read the fullness of the text and know the fullness of God's grace. And Leviticus is a book of laws, and we know that under the new covenant, that God's grace through his death on the cross and the blood he shed for us is what gives us forgiveness and salvation. And so in my dream, there was a suggestion, and I think it's a good one, that we want to unsubscribe and ban channels from our viewing that are not in line with Scripture, and that may have some kind of warning label on it, that they're not completely and totally aware of the full gospel of grace.